it's Kathy from Afternoons, and this is Josh Baldwin stopping in today. You're on tour with Phil Wickham, and you guys are doing a concert.
I am.
You're doing a concert tonight.
Tonight in Holland,
in
Michigan.
Holland. Well, very cool. Thank you so much for being here.
That's so good to be here.
It is such
Thank
a pleasure to talk with you. I was telling some friends, I was on a worship team in Washington a couple years ago, and I was telling them last night, I was like, we used to sing Stand in Your Love all the time. And I was like, I am interviewing that guy that sings that song.
Awesome.
And they were very impressed. And they were like, well, tell him to come out here to Washington. And I think you guys are heading out that way.
We are heading that way.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So, man, that song, though, that's blessed my socks off. So thank you for that, and just what a ministry you are.
Thank you.
So it's such a joy to have you
kind.
here. So tell me a little bit about your upbringing and your family, and like where you came from. Was there a musical influence?
Yeah. Yes to all that. I'm from North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up. My dad's a pastor, but he also was a worship leader, and he was big into music. Was in bands growing up, and was in rock bands, but also played football. You know, he's like one of those guys, jock and
all the things.
Yeah, and a hippie, and so I grew up in music. I grew up playing drums with him, and then I was in high school, I think, when I started to just lead worship and really fell in love with that. But also with Christian music and radio and just, I was very, very influenced, very inspired by Christian music growing up and worship. And just, that's when I think when I was 20, I started writing and trying to write songs for the church. And, so I tried going to college and it didn't work out. I was still a good kid. I just didn't go to class because all I wanted to do was play music. I had like I think I was on academic probation and all that, just because I was like, I don't want to do this. I want to play music. So absolutely. I dropped out and then went to ministry school, and then that was like, cool. Okay. But so I led worship. I was a worship pastor for 10 years or so in churches, a couple churches. Cool. And I'm giving you the full rundown. Yeah, so you did. Met my wife, all that.
Oh, yeah, okay, so where in there, did you meet your wife?
I met, not until I was 30.
Okay.
And she's
not old.
That's not old. That's not old. At the time, I thought I was never going to get married.
Yeah.
But it was great. I met my wife, and we got married almost 12 years ago.
Okay.
And
what's her name?
Her name is Sheila.
Sheila. Yeah. And so you guys been married 12 years?
11 and a half years.
Okay, and do you have kids?
We have two kids. Mm-hmm. We have a daughter. My daughter is 10, and then my son is 9. My daughter was born on our 1-year wedding anniversary.
Wow.
Yeah, and then 6 months later, we got pregnant with my son. So
getting it all done.
We just just get it done out of the way. I was 31, 32, 33, something like that. So like let's just have babies. But
that's awesome.
But and then not long after that was when we moved to California, and we were part of Bethel Music, and which I'm still a part of Bethel Music, but last year we moved to Tennessee.
Okay.
So now we're closer to family, and travel's a little bit easier, but we do miss the beauty of Northern California. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, so I have a question here for you. If you could take a one-day workshop to learn from any musical artist, past or present. Who would it be, and what would you want to take away from it?
Oh, my goodness. That's a good one. Oh, gosh. I don't know if I'm trying to, narrow it down to one. A one-day workshop. I love Stephen Curtis Chapman. I'm going to say two. I'd be like fine. Stephen Curtis Chapman. I would want to talk to him just about songwriting, and then I grew up listening to Delirious, old worship band, and Martin Smith. I love him, and I just would want to pick his brain about worship and just leading worship and how he navigates the whole leading worship with also being an artist and the performance side of it and all that. I feel like he navigates all that so well.
Yeah. So. Oh, great answer. So what about, those are musical influences. What about who's your most significant spiritual influence?
Oh, gosh.
That's a big question, I know.
It is. That's a deep question.
I know.
I mean, my dad would have to be number one just because he's my dad. And he, I've done life with him, not just him. He was my pastor for the first 20 years of my life. But but I've also done life, and I've seen him in life, and life be hard for him, and or, you know, just seeing the ups and downs and just the real life parts of, and so that. But then also, I think my pastor Bill out at Bethel was like a very big spiritual mentor.
Okay. All right. Okay, so Steve and I, we do this thing, well, it'll just be me this week, but called Best and Worst of the Week.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to do this with a twist. What's your best and worst stage moment?
Oh, man. You know what? I always get asked, like, what's my worst stage moment?
Yeah.
And
You don't have
I
any?
don't know. I mean, I think I don't have, like, a massive one that was, like, very embarrassing.
Very obvious.
And I'm very fine with, like, awkward, embarrassing moments. I think I'm just, like, okay with it. It's kind of funny to me. So they don't, like, stay in my brain and scar me for life. So I think I've forgotten a lot of them.
You move
but
on.
I do move on. The funny thing is, because we're playing tonight. I'm with Phil Wickham right now, Mr. This Is Amazing Grace. And I remember one of the first big things I did with Bethel Music. We were on tour with, it was the Outcry tour. I think we were on tour with, like, Hillsong United and I mean, it's just all these big worship movements. And I was singing This Is Amazing Grace, and it's like, 15,000 people. I've never been in front of that many people. I'm like, I'm nervous and scared.
Yeah.
And I'd flub the first verse of This Is Amazing Grace to just mess it up. And it's funny because they all know it because it's like one of the most popular worship songs.
Yes.
So they know that I messed it up.
Right.
And so the great thing about that is, like, that's probably my biggest, like, embarrassing moment, and it wasn't even that bad. But
I mean, the name of the song, This Is Amazing Grace, like, maybe they showed you some grace.
They did.
Because, you know.
And the funny thing is, on this tour, Phil texted me right before it started, and he said, okay, so we're going to do This Is Amazing Grace, but can you do the first verse, and then I'll do the rest? And it was inside, I was like, that's the verse that I messed up. So it's kind of, it's a redeeming tour where I get to sing the first verse correct in front of the guy who wrote it. So that's great.
That is really cool. You've written a lot of songs that people might not have known that you were the writer of that song. Give us just one that people might not know that you wrote.
Oh my goodness. Well, it has to be a big enough song for people to know the song, though. That's the thing. I mean, there's an old song that some churches do called Praises. Be Lifted Up that I wrote. The Be Lifted Up, Be Lifted Higher, Be Lifted Up.
Yeah.
So I wrote that a long time ago, like maybe 12 years ago.
The inside scoop right here.
The inside scoop, and it's not really banging on anything big that people would hear, but
that's cool.
But I hear churches that do it, so it's like maybe
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Giving us a little inside scoop. Okay, so last question here. What advice would you give a younger aspiring musician out there?
Oh, wow. I mean, I think the biggest thing would be just be yourself and be, I know for me, for so many years, I was a little bit, like, the way music came out, I loved it, but then I thought, well, maybe people won't receive it if it's not a certain way, or if it's not meeting, like, these, if it doesn't sound like the things that are popular right now.
Right.
And I think, like, I'm trying to be somebody, and then the minute I just, like, sat into, like, my lane and just, okay, I'm gonna let this is gonna come out sounding probably a little bit like this because I'm from North Carolina, I'm from the South, there's a rootsiness that's in me, and the minute I wrote a song and just kind of let it come out like that, like Stand in Your Love, then it just, I mean, it's a good song too, but also, like, I think it was just the authenticity of, this just sounds like Josh. It sounds like what songs sound like when they come out of Josh, when the Lord gives. And so, and that like a light went on in me that was like, I just need to be myself. I need to, like, be who I am and who the Lord's called me to be in writing, in my music, and then let Him breathe on it. And people also pick up Him in the song, but also just me and just, this is who I am.
I love that.
And so I wish that had happened before I had turned 40, and I was, like, in my 20s, but it didn't. And so
40 is still young too.
40 is still young. 42 is where I'm at right now, but it's
Very
young. I'm just starting out, so I'm just hitting my prime.
Josh Baldwin, thank you so much for being here and for chatting with us this afternoon. Man, it's such a pleasure to talk with you and to get to know you better.
Thank you. It's so good to be here. Thanks for having me.